But while trade talks won't be impacted, the U.S. economy could be in jeopardy due to the shutdown. That's not a guess. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell warned yesterday that the longer the shutdown goes on, the more damage it will do. We're guessing Harvard economics professor Ken Rogoff has been thinking a lot about the potential harm and what else might ding the economy. Welcome, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
Well, we're less than 9 hours away from the longest government shutdown in history. You know, Jerome Powell of the Fed is a guy who's picking his words very carefully these days. So if he says it's going to hurt, I'd like to know when and how you think an extended shutdown could begin to damage our economy.
Well, I think we don't know. I mean, we don't see things like this very often. If it, say, ended today, I think it would turn out to be like a lot of natural disasters, a big human tragedy, but the long-term macro effect's not that big. But if it goes on, you know what? The government does do stuff, and things businesses need, things we need to, keep our economy going. And I do think you're going to start to get longer-term effects, and then obviously just the direct effects on consumption from the 800,000 workers not getting paid.
Okay, so that's a headline. You know, the direct effect from the 800,000, whether it's the Coast Guard members who didn't get a paycheck today but are still working, TSA agents. Where do you think we'd first see signs of that? Would that be in retail sales? I'm trying to give our viewers a sense of a bit down the road in the landscape.
I think, the obvious thing would be retail sales. Again, the shutdown is artificial. It could be made to go away quickly. But if I think it lasts a long time, it's certainly going to eat into profits. It's going to eat into growth. I hesitate to overstate it because a lot like when we have natural disasters, it's not necessarily as bad as it sounds, but it's very bad for some people.
Okay. Before we get off the Federal Reserve discussion here, do you think that the Fed is right in backing off on interest rates? This, as we got a December job growth number of 312,000, which was a blowout number. Do you think it's just time for the Fed to take a pause regardless of decent data coming out?
Well, I mean, the question's where's the inflation? I mean, it's been 2 decades since we've really had significant inflation, and I think that's really the big question. Suppose we had inflation of 2.5% for a couple of years, but good growth continued. That's not a bad trade-off. I think they have to be very careful about over-tightening. They say they have a 2% inflation target, but it's been low for a long time. They could allow it to be high for a little while. I don't think it's a big deal, but they have to talk themselves into that. Okay,
so they have to be very careful. I'm hearing you say they need to back off here. We're facing Brexit discussions next week. How worried are you that that could reach across the pond and affect us?
I mean, it's not on the order of magnitude of having China have a problem, but it's certainly chaos. They should have a second referendum. They shouldn't be doing Brexit. I think it was sold wrong. But that said, Jeremy Corbyn on the left doesn't want to help push things along because he thinks he'll be in government if everything blows up. And the people on the far right within May's government don't want to give in. It really seems like an impasse. I don't know what it's going to come to at this point. Okay. It's very bad for Europe. It could be bad for us.
I would think. In the end, though, you feel that if you had to pick which is worse for the economy, the China trade tensions or the government shutdown right now, you say?
Oh, China's a much bigger deal. China's the story of the last 3 decades. We haven't seen a slowdown like this. It's looking like it might be the real deal. Maybe they'll pull out of it yet again, but that's a much harder thing to do with the shutdown, which we can just make go away by having the Democrats and President Trump snap their fingers.
Yeah, well, right now they've got their hands behind their backs, and that seems to be the problem.
They certainly do.
Oh, Ken, thank you very much. It's good to see you.